Welcome to my next Let's Play session of the sequel to Wizard's Crown called, as you can see, Eternal Dagger. Now, I did kind of do a bit of a Let's Play summary before this, but then I found limitations to the particular recording program that I'm using, so I gotta be a bit brief in regards to summaries, so I can only do about roughly 15 minutes before it cuts me off, and then I have to go into the next session. So let's see what we have for the default party, and I'll try and keep it within 15 minutes. I just started it. I know exactly what time, so we're using our Atari emulator. So let's press spacebar to play the game. And I think I didn't set it to, yeah. There we go, that's a little bit better. I didn't set it for fast disk access, so we're going to set disk 1. And now it wants disk 4. Okay, so this is the default party that the game provides you. And let's go and look over these characters. Ran into some difficulty with the changes. I'm so used to being at the cross swords in and it giving me an option to not leave, so I gotta be careful not to hit that X key if I don't want to leave right away. So they did change the keys a little bit, and I'll talk about that. You know, I is inspect instead of C for check a character. So let's go ahead and we'll do inspect A, and he's a pure fighter. Looks like he's a swords person. Next page, and that's correct. Alright, next display. Okay. Inspect A. Now they did add in the item, or at least the ability anyway, to put items into your backpack, which is L. Look at backpack. And we can carry 10 items regardless of size in our backpack, and 10 items with limitations on the main character. I think it's 3 or 4 medium items and a large item. We might be able to carry another large item, the person's personal inventory, not the backpack, but I'm not 100% sure on that. I'd have to check the rules. They also put a limitation in regards to how many priests and how many sorcerers you can have. So the limit, if you're creating a party from scratch, is a combination of 3 sorcerers max and 3 priests max. Now you can have any number of, thieves and rangers and what have you, but no more than 3 priests and 3 sorcerers. But if you import a character party from Wizard's Crown, it doesn't care how many priests or sorcerers that you have. So that's the reason why I went with, half priests, half sorcerers, so that I can exploit the luck statistic so that monsters would have a hard time in the front row, and then go from there, basically. So, and this is the first character again. They did add in a new weapon skill called Thrown Weapon. Now what that does is that you get a thrown weapon, at least in the starting out, like javelins or hammers. You can throw it once in combat and then you have to recover it. Actually, I think it's automatically recovered at the end of combat, so you only get one attack with it, unless you just do a normal attack. Now that changes once we get to the Dwarven Island, because then we can get Dwarven hammers, which return to us after they're thrown, so that makes the weapon a very, or at least a good missile skill to develop for any of the back row characters. So I'll definitely give it to one of them. Let's go and inspect the next character. He's a axe using character. He's a fighter. In regards to fighter characters, they're probably not excuse me, they're probably not the best choice, because you don't have much in terms of development for fighters. Not much really to do with them, just weapon skills, and that's it. You're better off probably developing, mechs like fighter sorcerers, fighter priests, fighter thieves with something, like fighter thief ranger, or things like that. Basically, you can have ranger, sorcerer, ranger, priest, but then you don't get like any of the other weapon skills. You only get bow, spear. I don't even think you get close combat. Let's check the last guy to verify that. Yeah, bow, spear, scan. Yeah, you don't even get shield. So a ranger with another, it's a poor choice, and the reason I'm saying that is that even though a bow uses two hands, there will be some items in the game that we can use even though we have two hands. So I'll talk about that when I get to that point. But one other thing is that the luck skill, it is limited to 200, so any priest in the front row getting it beyond 200 has no benefit. However, I can still bless the other 4 characters in my party and give them an effective luck bonus of 200. I may have to do that for a couple of fights. I don't know exactly for sure. And with this guy, this sorcerer, he's actually a combination of sorcerer and priest. You can see that Evaluate Magic and Read Ancient are no longer present as a skill, so we don't have to worry about those anymore. I guess it's assumed that he can read anything, so it doesn't really matter. And he can evaluate anything. That is also applicable for the Haggle skill for any thieves that we have. It's assumed that they're all maxed out and that they get full value for all items that they have. So let's see, who was I checking as of the B? So let's do C. And what I'll probably do is that I'll probably just break it up into like half and half. So actually, wow, look at that. The fighters had the most life, which isn't surprising. And the combination fighter, priest, what have you, they're not too bad. But that ranger, priest, sorcerer to get the last guy, yeah, he's a little bit hurting, at least in terms of development. In fact, if you actually use this default party, you can get by with it, but you're going to be spending a lot of time developing this last character. I'm just going to tell you that right now. In fact, it probably won't be fully developed until, well, of course, near the end of the game, but that's another story. So let's see, where was I? I was actually going to inspect C, who's a fighter priest, is a paladin, obviously. Now, the reason I kind of went with just minimal flail skill is that there is an enchanted flail in this game, but it's not really very good, at least in my opinion. So that, plus the fact that flail is a little bit prohibitive, and towards the end of the game you're a little bit better off with developing thrust attack, like with the spear skills. In fact, what I'll probably do for the finale is that most of the characters will just use spear, of which is only 4 skill points. It lets us still use a shield, and we don't have to worry about close combat. So, I mean, we could do bow plus the close combat. I'll think about that actually. I might do that because I can use shields with bows. Again, there's a kind of there's some items that allow us to do that, but I'll think about that a little bit later. So the max karma for a priest can go up to 500, and the max power for a sorcerer can also go up to 500. And you can also develop the skills up to 500, but they get a little bit prohibitive once you reach the 250 mark because it costs double the experience points to develop them up another point. So, for example, a flail 6, it would cost 12 for every point past 250, or crossbow would only cost 6, but still, that to me is prohibitive. So, and as I said earlier, luck has effective luck up to 200. So, and I've been kind of keeping track of my stopwatch, how much time I'm taking on this. So I'm actually going to cut off the recording here, and I'll talk to you in a few moments. I'll be back.